So you want to add Fleep to a table. Well, I think adding Fleep to a table really adds to the realism and it almost makes the physics feel more real. So it's definitely worth the effort in my opinion. We're going to add Fleep to Defender, Williams 1982, one of my favorite 80s tables. I think this one was built by 32 Assassin. So we're just going to give it a little update. We have this document here, the Fleep tutorial document that I'll be walking through. Very first step is to add the sounds. So we go to the sound manager, import, and I have already downloaded all the sounds, and I typically add them in like 3 chunks. A to B, from C down to into F. And the rest. Why do I do it this way? Well, if you do them all at once, it'll miss some at the end. So I just do it in 3 chunks. You might be able to do it in 2, but I do it in 3. Well, I wish that was all there is to it, but there's a lot more. I'm going to save this now. Okay, so the first part of this video, we're going to add some of the script, and then I think we're going to probably have at least one more video to finish it all off. Because there's it really is adding scripts and then assigning objects to collections at the table level. So the first script we're going to add is this giant chunk here. And I always just add this to the bottom of the table script. Oh, whoops. Select all that. Paste it at the bottom. Boom. Okay. We also need to add the core tracker, which calculates lots of useful things for us, like ball velocities. This is used by not only Fleep, but also NFOSSI physics implementation, so you really only want to add this once. This table does not have the physics implementation installed in it yet, so we need to add the script and we need to add a new timer. So we have these timers already. I'm just going to check what timers we have. So select elements, sort by type, go down to the timers, and yeah, we don't have our dampen yet. We do have rolling timer, which we'll use later. So let's add our dampen. It needs to be a timer interval of 10 milliseconds. Okay. Moving on, we have the we have the options. I'm having real issues with the Dropbox editing right now. General sound options. Let's put this at the very top. Put it where you think it's best, but the very top makes sense to me. Okay, now in the tutorial they talk about the collections that we'll need to add. So for the collections are used by the script to organize table objects into certain sound effect categories, basically. Now in this table, if you go to Table Collections Manager, you see all the collections, and in this table, we'll need to add some that don't already exist. All right, so here we need to add metals. You need to have this fire events for this collection checked for every single collection that's shown here in the tutorial. Apron. Now sometimes there's an object on the table called apron, and if that's the case, you won't be able to create a collection of the same name. It'll just default to like the name collection 001 if there's a naming conflict. So in that case, what I usually do is go to that particular table object and I change its name, like I would make it apron 1 or apron 2. But then you have to go into the script and search for the name apron and make sure that it's not being used by that name in the script somewhere. And if it is, you have to change the script as well to rename it to like apron 1 or 2, whatever you called that object. Otherwise, you're going to get, run into problems in the script. Walls. Okay, there's already a collection here called targets, but I want to make sure that fire events for this collection is on. We can probably reuse this, or we definitely will reuse this collection. And gates as well. I'm going to make gates wire. And rubbers is already there. And it has fire events. We'll fill up these collections with objects later. When we do fill them up, we are going to need to make sure that all the objects that are in those collections have the has hit event checked. It's a little, it's this checkbox for an object. We'll get into that when we do it. All right, so at this point, I'm going to save everything. And we will move on to the key down subs. Here we go. So I'm just going to copy and paste all of this in. Don't do that, Dan. Okay. I'm going to paste it in here. It's formatted differently, but, we'll deal with that later. Yes, you do need to deal with it. You must format your code correctly, or you will be punished. But I'm going to do it later. Okay. Plunger, this is the old code. So the plunger key is already checked. but we want to replace that with this line. So plunger key, all of this does is it pulls back the plunger and it plays a sound. So that's exactly what this is doing, but we have a new sound call that's Fleep specific. So I'm going to paste that in there. So all of these are now good to go. Yes, you will get reformatted later. Now for the key up sub, I'm going to copy this time. Okay. Plunger key again is being redefined. So in this case, what the Fleep code does is it looks for the plunger key to be pressed. It fires the plunger, but it also needs to, it changes the sound effect based on whether there's a ball in the plunger lane or not. BIPL. That's a new variable. So we have to actually define that variable. We're going to do it globally. BIPL. And I'm going to, oops. I'm going to initialize it to 0 when the table loads. But we need to create this, we need to handle this functionality by setting BIPL to 1 when there's a ball in the plunger lane, and we'll use this switch here, switch 50, which is there's typically a switch in front of the plunger because the ROM needs to know that there's a ball ready. So switch 50, let's do a search on that. Okay. Conveniently, there's already a hit and an unhit function down here. And so for the hit function or subroutine, we're going to make BIPL equal to 1. And when it's unhit, BIPL equals 0. So I think that's all handled now. And we get different sound effects whether or not there's a ball there. Moving on to the flippers. ROM tables use the solenoid callback array, which calls different functions based on what solenoids have recently changed. There's these two called sol R flipper and sol L flipper, which we're going to modify. So I'm just going to paste in. See, this is, oh, I need to first create this constant called ref flip angle 20. Okay. So here's our new code. And the old code, what did it do? First thing it did was play a sound, and then it actuates 2 flippers on the left side. This, in the new script, there's this LF fire, which is related to the nfuzzy code, and we don't have that in here yet, so I'm going to comment that out. But I do need to add in this part here, which actuates those flippers. And on the disable part, it just rotates those two back to start. So I need to make sure I copy that over here. So we handle both flippers on the left side. I think that's it. I can delete the old part. And we're going to do the same thing on the right side. Oops. Right flipper rotate to start is already there. Okay. Left flipper and right flipper sound effects are now Fleepized. Okay, so now here's an important part to make note of. We have these flipper collide subroutines. These subroutines certainly already exist in the table that you're updating. So what I would recommend is to search for those. So I'm going to search on the left flipper collide. And here they are. These looks like all they're doing is generating some sound effects. So I want to delete these two because I'm going to make new ones. And, definitely make sure you do not duplicate functions because then it's uncertain whether, which one will be actually used. I think it's the one at the top of the script, but I'm not 100% sure on that. So just don't have duplicates. I'm just going to double check. No, that's it. Only one. Okay. We are done with the flippers. I'm going to skip the ball rolling and drop sound part for now. I'll come back to it later. Okay. I think this is a good place to stop this first video. The next one we'll go over adding more specific sound effects where we'll have to modify the table in a way that is fairly table specific. So stay tuned for that.